The moment Emma Clarke stepped through the iron gates of the Ashford estate, she knew her life would never be the same, but she had no idea just how terrifying that change would be. The mansion loomed before her like something out of a Gothic novel, all sharp angles and dark stone, with ivy creeping up its walls like grasping fingers. It was the kind of house that held secrets, the kind that whispered through its corridors long after everyone had gone to sleep. Emma pulled her worn cardigan tighter around her shoulders, her breath forming small clouds in the crisp October air as she walked up the endless driveway. She was 23 years old, broke and desperate. 3 months ago, she'd been a college student with dreams of becoming a child psychologist. Then her mother's cancer returned, the medical bills piled up, and Emma's carefully constructed future crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide. She dropped out, moved back home, and taken every odd job she could find. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. That's when she'd seen the advertisement on an obscure job board, the kind that usually hosted scams and pyramid schemes. But this one was different. It promised $10,000 a month, cash, for a live-in babysitter position. No agencies, no references required, just a brief interview and immediate start. The money was absurd, almost insulting in how obviously suspicious it was. But Emma's mother needed an experimental treatment that insurance wouldn't cover. The cost? $120,000. Emma had exactly $3,247 in her savings account. So here she was, standing in front of a door that probably cost more than her childhood home, about to knock and hope that whatever waited on the other side wasn't as sinister as the salary suggested. She raised her hand and let the heavy brass knocker fall 3 times. The sound echoed through what must have been a massive entryway. Emma waited, shifting her weight from foot to foot, suddenly aware of her scuffed sneakers and the small hole in her jeans. She was about to knock again when the door swung open silently, as if operated by invisible hands. A woman stood in the doorway, tall and elegant in a way that made Emma feel like a child playing dress-up. She was perhaps in her late 40s, with striking silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes so pale blue they were almost gray. She wore a tailored black dress that probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. "Miss Clarke." The woman's voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of an accent Emma couldn't quite place. "Yes, that's me. I'm here about the babysitting position." The woman's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on someone else but seemed more like a calculated expression. "Of course. I'm Mrs. Victoria Ashford. Please come in." Emma stepped into the foyer and felt her breath catch. The entrance hall was enormous, with a sweeping staircase that curved up to the second floor, a crystal chandelier that must have contained 1,000 pieces of cut glass, and marble floors so polished she could see her reflection. Oil paintings lined the walls, portraits of stern-faced people in period clothing, all watching her with painted eyes that seemed to follow her movement. "Impressive, isn't it?" Mrs. Ashford said, closing the door with a soft click that somehow sounded final. "The house has been in the Ashford family for 6 generations. My husband inherited it from his father, who inherited it from his father, and so on. History has a weight to it, Miss Clarke. Sometimes that weight can be suffocating." There was something in the way she said it that made Emma's skin prickle, but she forced herself to smile. "It's beautiful. I've never seen anything like it." "No, I don't imagine you have." Mrs. Ashford's eyes swept over Emma's appearance, taking in every detail with the precision of an appraiser evaluating merchandise. "The advertisement mentioned we're looking for someone immediately. I assume your situation is similarly urgent." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "My mother is sick. The treatment she needs is expensive." "Cancer?" Mrs. Ashford asked, and there was something almost predatory in the way she waited for the answer. "Yes. How did you?" "It's always cancer or gambling debts. Sometimes both." Mrs. Ashford turned and began walking deeper into the house, her heels clicking against the marble. "Follow me. We'll discuss the terms of your employment." Emma hurried after her, through a series of increasingly opulent rooms. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a formal dining room with a table that could seat 20, a sitting room with furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Finally, they entered what appeared to be Mrs. Ashford's private study, a smaller, more intimate space dominated by a massive mahogany desk. "Sit," Mrs. Ashford commanded, settling into the chair behind the desk with the grace of a queen assuming her throne. Emma perched on the edge of one of the leather chairs opposite, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Let me be frank, Miss Clarke. The reason we're paying so well is because this position requires absolute discretion and unwavering loyalty. What happens in this house stays in this house. Do you understand?" "Yes, of course. I would never." Mrs. Ashford held up one perfectly manicured hand. "Let me finish. You will be caring for our daughter Lily. She's 7 years old, and she's special. She requires constant supervision. You will not leave her alone, not even for a moment. Not to use the bathroom, not to make a phone call, not for any reason. If you must leave the room, you will notify either myself or my husband first. Is that clear? Emma felt a chill run down her spine. Does she have a medical condition? Nothing that concerns you beyond following my instructions precisely. Mrs. Ashford opened a drawer and pulled out a thick stack of papers. This is a non-disclosure agreement. You will sign it before meeting Lily. It's quite comprehensive. Essentially, you agree never to discuss anything you see, hear, or experience in this house with anyone outside these walls. The penalties for breach of contract are severe, both financial and legal. Emma's hand trembled slightly as she took the papers. This was wrong. Every instinct she had screamed that she should stand up, walk out, and never look back. But then she thought of her mother, lying in that hospital bed, the hope fading from her eyes a little more each day. There's one more thing, Mrs. Ashford said, leaning forward. There are parts of this house that are off-limits. The West Wing is strictly forbidden. You are never, under any circumstances, to enter that section of the mansion. Not even if you hear something, not even if Lily somehow runs in that direction. You will call for help and wait. Do you understand? What's in the West Wing? Emma asked before she could stop herself. Mrs. Ashford's eyes went cold. Nothing that concerns you. Those are the rules, Miss Clarke. Take them or leave them. But decide now. I have 3 other candidates coming for interviews this afternoon. Emma looked down at the contract. $10,000 a month, paid in cash. Enough to save her mother. Enough to give them both a future. She signed. Emma met Lily an hour later, after Mrs. Ashford had given her a brief tour of the permitted areas of the house and shown her to her room, a surprisingly cozy space with a 4-poster bed, antique furniture, and a window that looked out over the estate's sprawling gardens. Lily's room is just down the hall, Mrs. Ashford explained as they walked. She's been difficult lately. Several previous babysitters have quit without notice. I trust you'll have more fortitude. How many babysitters has she had? Emma asked. 5 in the last 3 months. Mrs. Ashford stopped in front of a white door decorated with painted flowers. Remember, never leave her alone. Never enter the West Wing. And if she says anything unusual, you're to report it to me immediately. Before Emma could ask what unusual meant, Mrs. Ashford opened the door. The room beyond was a little girl's dream, all pink and white, with stuffed animals arranged on shelves, a canopy bed draped in gauze, and toys scattered across a plush carpet. But it was the girl sitting on the bed who captured Emma's attention. Lily Ashford was small for 7, with long dark hair that fell past her shoulders and enormous brown eyes that seemed far too old for her young face. She wore a white dress with lace trim and held a porcelain doll in her lap, one that looked disturbingly realistic. Lily, this is Emma. She's going to be taking care of you, Mrs. Ashford said, her voice taking on an artificial sweetness that hadn't been there before. Lily stared at Emma for a long moment, unblinking. Then she smiled, and Emma felt her blood run cold. It wasn't the smile of a child, it was knowing, almost pitying. Hello, Emma, Lily said softly. How long do you think you'll last? Mrs. Ashford's hand clenched briefly at her side. Lily, that's not polite. I'm just curious. The last one only made it 2 weeks. The one before her lasted 3 days. Lily tilted her head. You look stronger though. Maybe you'll make it a whole month before you run away screaming. That's enough, Mrs. Ashford snapped. She turned to Emma, her composure cracking just slightly. I'll leave you 2 to get acquainted. Dinner is at 6 o'clock sharp in the small dining room. Lily knows the way. She left before Emma could respond, closing the door with a soft click. Emma turned back to find Lily watching her with those 2 old eyes. The girl set down her doll with careful precision and stood up. You shouldn't have come here, Lily said conversationally. But it's too late now. You signed the papers, didn't you? You can't leave until they let you, and they won't let you. Not once you know. Know what? Emma asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lily walked to the window and looked out at the darkening sky. About the West Wing. About what they keep there. About why the babysitters always run away, the ones who are smart enough to run anyway. Emma's mouth went dry. Lily, I'm sure whatever you're talking about. Do you hear that? Lily interrupted. Emma fell silent, listening. At first, she heard nothing but the wind against the windows. Then very faintly she heard it, a sound like crying, coming from somewhere deep within the house. It was high and thin, almost inhuman. "What is that?"
Emma whispered.
Lily turned from the window, and in the fading light, her face looked pale as death. "That's my sister.
The one they don't talk about.
The one they keep locked up in the West Wing." Emma's heart hammered in her chest. "You don't have a sister. Your mother said you're an only child." "That's what they tell everyone." Lily moved closer, her voice dropping to barely more than a whisper.
"But I can hear her at night. Crying. Screaming.
Begging to be let out. Sometimes I can hear my parents talking about her, about what went wrong, about why they have to keep her hidden." "Lily, this isn't funny." "I'm not trying to be funny." For the first time, Lily's composure cracked, and Emma saw real fear in her eyes. "I'm trying to warn you. You need to leave before it's too late."
Before they. The door burst open.
Mr. Ashford stood in the doorway, and Emma realized she hadn't even heard him approach. He was tall and imposing, with dark hair silvered at the temples and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore an expensive suit and an expression of barely controlled anger. "Lily," he said quietly, "what have we discussed about telling stories?" Lily's face went blank, all emotion draining away.
"I'm sorry, Father.
I was just playing pretend." "Go to the bathroom and wash up for dinner.
Now."
Lily scurried past him without another word. Mr. Ashford watched her go, then turned his attention to Emma. His gaze was cold, analytical, and Emma had the sudden feeling of being a specimen under a microscope. "My daughter has a vivid imagination," he said. "She likes to test new caregivers, to see how they react to her stories. I hope she hasn't frightened you."
"No, of course not," Emma lied.
"Kids will be kids."
"Indeed."
He studied her for another moment, then nodded.
"Good.
"You seem sensible, Miss Clarke. I hope you'll prove more resilient than your predecessors. We've grown quite tired of the revolving door of staff." He left without another word, and Emma found herself alone in Lily's room, surrounded by toys and the lingering echo of a child's warning.
She should leave.
Right now, before dinner, before she spent one more second in this house that felt wrong in ways she couldn't articulate. But then she thought of her mother, of the treatment, of the money. Emma took a deep breath and went to find Lily. The first week passed in a strange blur. During the day, Lily was surprisingly normal, playing with her toys, doing her homeschool lessons at the kitchen table. Mrs. Ashford taught her herself, never sending her to regular school, and generally behaving like any other 7-year-old. But at night, everything changed. The crying would start around midnight. At first, Emma tried to convince herself it was just the wind, or the old house settling, or her imagination running wild. But the sound was too consistent, too deliberate. It was definitely human, and it was definitely coming from the direction of the West Wing. On her third night, Emma couldn't take it anymore. She crept out of her room and down the hallway, following the sound. The mansion was different at night. Shadows pooled in corners like living things, and every creak of the floorboards sounded deafening in the silence. She reached the entrance to the West Wing, a heavy oak door with an old-fashioned lock. Emma pressed her ear against it, listening. The crying was louder here, clearer. It sounded young, maybe a teenager, and the sobs were interspersed with words Emma couldn't quite make out. "You shouldn't be here." Emma spun around to find Mr. Ashford standing behind her, still fully dressed despite the late hour. In the dim hallway light, his face looked skeletal, shadows pooling in his eye sockets. "I heard something," Emma stammered. "I thought maybe Lily." "Lily is in her room, where she should be. As should you." He moved closer, and Emma instinctively backed against the door. "These old houses make strange noises, Miss Clarke. The pipes, the foundation settling, the wind in the eaves. You'll get used to it." It sounded like someone crying.
It wasn't. His voice was flat, final. "Go back to bed.
And remember our agreement. Some parts of this house are none of your concern." Emma nodded and hurried back to her room, her skin crawling with the feeling of his eyes on her back. She locked her door that night, not that it would do much good in a house where the family clearly had keys to everything. The shocking discovery. On the morning of her 8th day at the Ashford estate, Emma's entire world shifted. She was helping Lily get dressed when the girl suddenly grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "Do you want to know the truth?" Lily whispered urgently. "The real truth." Emma glanced at the door, making sure it was closed. "Lily, I don't think." "My sister's name is Rose," Lily continued, speaking fast.
"She's 16.
She's been in the West Wing for 3 years. They locked her up when she started asking questions about our family." "Questions about what?"
Lily's grip tightened. About where our money comes from.
About the people who visit father late at night.
About the footsteps in the hallway.
Lily immediately released Emma's wrist and went back to playing with her doll, her face becoming that careful blank mask Emma had learned to recognize. Mrs. Ashford appeared in the doorway. "Lily, your father wants to see you in his study."
Now.
As Lily walked past her mother, Emma saw the girl slip something into her pocket, a small piece of paper, folded many times. Mrs. Ashford didn't seem to notice. When they were alone, Mrs. Ashford turned to Emma with an expression that might have been concern or might have been something darker. "How are you adjusting, Miss Clarke? No problems I should be aware of?" "Everything's fine," Emma said automatically.
Good. Tonight my
husband and I have business in the city.
We'll be gone until late.
You'll be alone with Lily. Remember the rules." After Mrs. Ashford left, Emma found the note Lily had hidden, tucked behind the radiator in Lily's room where Emma would find it during cleanup. It was written in a child's careful handwriting.
"3rd floor. Blue room.
Behind the mirror. This is your only chance to know the truth.
Tonight. After midnight. I'll keep watch."
Emma's hands shook as she held the note.
This was insane.
She should tear it up, forget about it, just do her job and collect her money. Her mother's treatment had already started thanks to the advance Mrs. Ashford had paid her. She couldn't risk losing this position. But that crying at night, the fear in Lily's eyes, the way everyone in this house moved like they were walking on eggshells. That night, Emma waited until she heard the Ashford's car pull away. She checked on Lily, who was supposedly asleep but gave her a tiny nod when Emma peeked in. Then, with her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs, Emma made her way to the 3rd floor. She'd only been up there once during her initial tour. It was mostly storage, Mrs. Ashford had said, nothing of interest. But now, with her phone flashlight cutting through the darkness, Emma searched for the blue room. She found it at the end of a long hallway. The door was unlocked, and inside was what looked like an old dressing room, vanity, wardrobe, a full-length mirror in an ornate frame. Behind the mirror, Lily had written. Emma approached the mirror carefully. It took her a moment to figure out that the frame was hinged, and when she pulled it open, it revealed a small door set into the wall. Her hands trembled as she turned the handle. Inside was a narrow staircase leading down. The smell that wafted up was musty and wrong, like something had been shut away for far too long. Emma almost turned back then.
Almost. But she descended.
The staircase led to a corridor she'd never seen before, part of the house's original structure, she guessed, predating the renovations. Old wooden doors lined both sides, and at the end was a newer-looking door with a heavy deadbolt. The crying was louder here, coming from that locked door at the end. Emma walked toward it as if in a trance. This was it, the source of the sound that had haunted her nights. The truth that Lily had been trying to tell her.
"Hello." Emma called softly. "Is someone there?"
The crying stopped abruptly. Then a voice, young female, hoarse from disuse, called back, "Who's there?"
"Is someone there?
Please help me."
Emma's heart clenched.
She tried the door, but it was locked, and the deadbolt was too sturdy to force.
"My name is Emma.
I'm the new babysitter. Are you Rose?"
A sob.
Yes, I'm Rose Ashford. Please, you have to get me out of here. They've kept me locked up for 3 years.
Why?
What did you do?
Nothing.
I just found out the truth about my family. Rose's voice became frantic. The Ashfords aren't who they say they are. Their money isn't from investments. Emma's blood turned to ice as Rose's desperate voice echoed through the hidden corridor. But before the girl could finish her revelation, the sound of a car engine shattered the night silence. They were back. The Ashfords were back early. "I have to go," Emma whispered urgently through the door.
"I'll come back, I promise."
"I'll find a way to help you."
"No.
Please don't leave me. They'll know you were here, they always know." Rose's voice cracked with desperation, her fists pounding against the door. "They have cameras everywhere.
You have to run.
Get out while you still can."
Emma's heart seized.
Cameras. Of course there were cameras. How could she have been so stupid?
She ran.
Up the narrow staircase, through the blue room, down the 3rd-floor hallway. Her footsteps thundered against the wooden floors as she raced back to her room, her mind spinning with panic. She'd violated the most fundamental rule of her employment. She'd gone into the forbidden wing. She'd discovered their secret. Emma burst into her bedroom and pressed her back against the door, gasping for breath. Through her window, she could see the Ashfords' black Mercedes parked in the circular driveway. The driver's side door was still open, interior light spilling out onto the gravel. But no one had gotten out of the car yet.
They were waiting. Watching.
A soft knock at her door made Emma jump so violently she nearly screamed.
Emma.
Lily's small voice came through the wood.
Let me in. Quickly.
Emma opened the door just wide enough for the girl to slip through, then locked it again. Lily was in her nightgown, her dark hair tangled from sleep, or from pretending to sleep. Did you find her? Lily asked, her old beyond her years eyes searching Emma's face.
Yes.
But your parents are back. Lily, she said there are cameras.
There are. Everywhere.
Lily moved to the window and peeked through the curtain. But not in the hidden corridor. That part of the house is too old. Father doesn't want to damage the original structure with modern equipment. She turned back to Emma. You have maybe 5 minutes before they check the security footage from tonight. They always do when they come home.
Then I'm finished.
They'll see me going to the 3rd floor. Not if we're smart. Lily grabbed Emma's hand with surprising strength for such a small child. Listen to me very carefully. In exactly 2 minutes, you're going to go downstairs to the kitchen. You're going to make yourself tea chamomile from the tin on the 2nd shelf. You're going to sit at the kitchen table and drink it slowly. When my parents find you there, you're going to tell them you couldn't sleep, that you were worried about doing a good job, that you came down for something to calm your nerves. But the footage will show. The kitchen camera has a blind spot near the door. If you sit in the right chair, they'll only see you from the moment you enter the kitchen. They won't be able to tell how long you've been there or where you came from.
Lily's grip tightened. Trust me, Emma.
I've been watching them check those cameras my whole life. I know how they think. Emma stared at this strange, brilliant child who shouldn't have to know such things. Why are you helping me? For the first time since Emma had met her, Lily's eyes filled with tears. Because you actually listened. You actually tried to help Rose. The others, they heard the crying, but they convinced themselves it was nothing. They took the money and left when things got too weird. But you cared enough to look. She wiped her eyes roughly.
Go. Now. And Emma?
Whatever you do, don't mention Rose. Don't give them any reason to know that you know. Emma sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of chamomile tea, when Victoria Ashford found her 20 minutes later.
Miss Clarke.
Victoria's voice was sharp with suspicion. What are you doing up at this hour? Emma forced herself to look sheepish rather than terrified. I'm sorry, Mrs. Ashford.
I couldn't sleep.
First week jitters, I guess. I thought some tea might help. She took a sip, proud that her hands didn't shake, at least not visibly. Victoria studied her for a long moment, and Emma could practically see the gears turning in the woman's head. Was Emma telling the truth? Had she seen something? Did she know? You look pale, Victoria finally said. Are you feeling well? Just tired. It's been an adjustment, living somewhere new. Victoria moved to the counter and poured herself a glass of water from the filtered pitcher. My husband noticed that Lily's bedroom door was unlocked when he checked on her just now. You did remember to lock it after putting her to bed, didn't you? Emma's blood ran cold. She hadn't locked it. Lily must have unlocked it to come warn her.
I thought I did. I'm so sorry.
It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. Victoria's pale eyes glinted in the kitchen's recessed lighting. Lily has a tendency to sleepwalk. It's very important that her door remains locked at night. For her own safety, you understand.
Sleepwalking. Right.
As if that explained why a child needed to be locked in her room like a prisoner.
Of course, Emma said.
I'll be more careful. Victoria continued to watch her, and Emma had the unsettling feeling of being a mouse under the gaze of a snake, perfectly still, hoping to avoid notice, knowing that one wrong move would mean death. The tea will help you sleep, Victoria said finally. Finish it and go back to bed. Tomorrow is Saturday, which means Lily will want to play in the gardens. She'll need her rest. As will you.
It was a dismissal.
Emma nodded, drained her cup with 3 long swallows that burned her throat, and stood. Good night, Mrs. Ashford. Good night, Miss Clarke. Emma made herself walk, not run, back to her room. Only when she was inside with the door locked did she allow herself to collapse against it, her whole body shaking with delayed terror. She dodged a bullet tonight. But how long could her luck hold? And more importantly, what was she going to do about Rose? The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that matched Emma's mood perfectly. She helped Lily get dressed in silence, both of them acutely aware that they couldn't speak freely. Not with potential listening devices hidden in the walls. Not when the Ashfords seemed to know everything that happened in their house. "It's too wet for the gardens," Lily announced at breakfast, pushing her eggs around her plate. "I want to play in the playroom instead." Victoria looked up from her coffee.
"The playroom needs to be cleaned first. Perhaps Emma can."
"I'll help Emma clean it," Lily interrupted.
"Then we can play together. Please, Mother."
Something flickered across Victoria's face, surprise perhaps, that Lily was being so cooperative.
"Very well.
But stay out of your father's way. He's working in his study and mustn't be disturbed." The playroom was on the second floor, a vast space filled with every toy a child could want. But it was also directly above the study, and as Emma and Lily worked to organize the scattered playthings, Emma could hear the low murmur of Mr. Ashford's voice through the floor.
"He was on the phone with someone."
Lily put a finger to her lips and pointed at a heating vent in the corner of the room. She mouthed the word, "Listen." Emma crept closer to the vent and pressed her ear against it. Mr. Ashford's voice became clearer, though still muffled by distance and metal. "Don't care about the complications. The shipment needs to arrive on schedule or we'll lose the contract. No, they can't trace it back to us. We've been doing this for 20 years without incident. What about the girl? She's secure. No, the new babysitter doesn't suspect anything."
Emma's breath caught.
They were talking about her. And about Rose. And about something that sounded distinctly illegal. "The accounts are clean," Mr. Ashford continued. "Even if someone looked, they'd only see legitimate investments. The offshore structures are buried under 6 layers of shell companies. Yes, I'm aware of the risks. But the alternative is losing everything we've built. Our daughter's future depends on."
"Emma."
Lily's voice was deliberately loud, a warning. "Can you help me with this box?"
Footsteps in the hallway.
Emma sprang away from the vent just as the playroom door opened. Mr. Ashford stood in the doorway, his phone still in his hand. His eyes went immediately to the vent, then to Emma, then back to the vent.
"Calculating. Suspicious."
"I thought I heard voices up here," he said softly. "Just us playing," Lily said brightly, holding up a doll. "Emma was helping me organize my collection." Mr. Ashford's gaze lingered on Emma for another moment. "I need to make a private call. Perhaps you could take Lily downstairs for her snack." "Of course," Emma said, proud of how steady her voice sounded.
"Come on, Lily.
Let's get you some juice and cookies." As they left, Emma felt Mr. Ashford's eyes boring into her back.
He knew.
Or at least, he suspected. The question was, what would he do about it? The shocking revelation. That afternoon, while Lily was having her supervised nap, supervised meaning Emma had to sit in a chair by her bed and watch her sleep, which was both boring and deeply unsettling, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking for answers. Take the money and forget what you've seen. This is your only warning." Emma's hands shook as she stared at the message.
They had her phone number.
Of course they did, it had been on her application. But the casual threat, the implication that they knew exactly what she'd discovered. Another text, "Your mother's treatment is expensive. It would be a shame if the funding dried up."
Emma felt sick.
They were threatening her mother now. These people, whoever they really were, whatever they were really doing, they had no boundaries. No lines they wouldn't cross. She looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her pink canopy bed, and felt a surge of anger so intense it surprised her. This child lived in a prison masquerading as a mansion. Her sister was literally locked in a hidden room. And Emma was supposed to just accept it? Just take the money and look the other way while a 16-year-old girl rotted in captivity? But what could she do? If she went to the police, the Ashfords would know immediately. They clearly had connections, resources, power. And even if she managed to get the authorities involved, what evidence did she have? She'd signed an NDA. She'd trespassed in forbidden areas of the house.
She'd be the one who looked guilty, not them. Her phone buzzed again. "We're not monsters, Emma.
We're protecting our family. Sometimes protection requires difficult choices. You'll understand when you have children of your own." Emma wanted to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she took a screenshot of the messages and emailed them to herself, then deleted the email from her sent folder and the screenshots from her phone. It wasn't much, but it was something. A small act of rebellion against her own powerlessness. Lily stirred in her sleep, murmuring something that sounded like Rose.
Emma's heart clenched.
She couldn't save Rose.
Not yet.
She didn't have the resources, the knowledge, or the power. But maybe, just maybe, she could start gathering information. Real information. The kind that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Emma pulled out a small notebook from her bag and began to write down everything she knew. Rose Ashford, age 16, imprisoned in West Wing for 3 years. Imprisoned for asking questions about family money. Mr. Ashford on phone, shipments, offshore accounts, shell companies. Multiple previous babysitters quit suddenly. Lily locked in her room at night. Security cameras throughout house, except old corridors. It wasn't much. But it was a start. That evening, Victoria announced that she and her husband would be attending a charity gala in the city the following night. "We'll be gone for several hours," she told Emma over dinner. "You'll have complete responsibility for Lily. We're trusting you, Miss Clarke. Don't disappoint us." There was something in the way she said, "trusting you," that made it sound more like a threat than a compliment. After the Ashfords retired to their private suite, Emma helped Lily prepare for bed. As she was tucking the girl in, Lily grabbed her wrist, their usual signal that something important needed to be said. "They're testing you," Lily whispered. "Tomorrow night. They're not really going to a gala. They'll leave, but father will come back early. He'll be watching to see what you do." "How do you know?" "Because they did the same thing to the last babysitter. And the one before her." Lily's eyes were enormous in the dim light of her bedroom. "They want to see if you'll try to help Rose. If you'll break the rules when you think no one's watching." Emma's mind raced. It was a trap. A test. If she tried to help Rose tomorrow night, they'd catch her in the act. But if she didn't? What happened to the last babysitter? Emma asked. Lily's grip tightened until it hurt. She went into the West Wing. Father caught her. She left that same night, and we never saw her again. But before she left, I heard her crying and saying something about them threatening her family. About how they'd ruin her life if she ever told anyone what she saw. And the one before her? She was smarter. She didn't take the bait. But 2 weeks later, she quit anyway. Said the house gave her nightmares. Lily released Emma's wrist. "They're never going to let you help Rose. The best thing you can do is survive long enough to find another way." Emma wanted to argue, to insist that there had to be something she could do. But looking into Lily's weary, prematurely aged eyes, she realized the girl was right. Direct action would only get her thrown out, or worse. "Thank you for warning me," Emma said softly. "Thank you for not running away yet." Lily settled back into her pillows. "Emma? Do you think Rose remembers what the outside world looks like? It's been so long since she's seen the sky." The question broke Emma's heart. "I'm sure she does, sweetheart." "I hope so. Because sometimes I worry that I'll forget too. That one day I'll wake up and this house will be the only thing I remember. Like it's swallowing me piece by piece." Lily closed her eyes. "Good night, Emma." "Good night, Lily." Emma locked Lily's door, hating herself for it, but knowing she had no choice, and returned to her own room. She couldn't sleep. Instead, she sat by her window and watched the moon rise over the Ashford estate's manicured gardens, her mind churning with impossible plans and desperate hopes. Somewhere below her, in a hidden corridor behind a mirror, a 16-year-old girl was spending another night in captivity. And Emma, despite all her good intentions, was complicit in keeping her there. The thought made her want to scream. The next evening, Victoria and her husband made a show of preparing for their gala. Victoria wore a stunning emerald gown that probably cost more than Emma's car. Mr. Ashford looked distinguished in his tuxedo, though his eyes, when they landed on Emma, were as cold as ever. "Remember," Victoria said, adjusting her diamond earrings in the hallway mirror, "Lily must be in bed by 8 o'clock. Doors locked. No exceptions." "I understand," Emma said. "Good." Victoria turned to her husband. "Shall we?" Emma watched from the window as their car pulled away, taillights disappearing down the long driveway. Beside her, Lily stood perfectly still, her small hand finding Emma's. "He'll be back in 2 hours," Lily whispered. "Maybe less." "Then I won't give him anything to see." But even as Emma said it, she felt something burning in her chest, a stubborn, foolish spark of rebellion that refused to be extinguished. She couldn't rescue Rose tonight. But maybe, just maybe, she could talk to her. Get more information. Find out exactly what the Ashfords were hiding. "Emma." Lily's voice was sharp with warning. "I know that look. Don't do it. Please." "I'm not going to do anything stupid," Emma promised. And she meant it. Mostly. She spent the evening playing board games with Lily, reading her stories, acting like the world's most normal babysitter. At 8 o'clock, she tucked Lily into bed, locked her door, and returned to her own room. And waited. At 9:30, she heard it, the sound of a car engine. But it wasn't coming up the driveway. It was coming from somewhere behind the house. Emma peered out her window and saw Mr. Ashford's Mercedes parked near the servants' entrance, headlights off.
He was here. Watching.
Waiting to see what she'd do. Emma's heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay calm. She turned on her bedside lamp, picked up a book, and made a show of reading. Knowing he might have a way to see into her room, might be watching even now. She would not take the bait. She would not give him an excuse to fire her, to threaten her, to make her disappear like the others. But as she sat there, pretending to read while her thoughts spiraled, Emma made a decision. She couldn't save Rose tonight. But she would save her eventually.
Somehow. Some way. Because if she didn't, who would?
At midnight, Mr. Ashford's car finally pulled away. Emma exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding.
She'd passed the test. For now.
But in the silence that followed, she heard it again, that thin, desperate crying from the West Wing. Rose's voice, muffled by walls and distance, calling out to a world that had forgotten she existed. Emma closed her eyes and whispered a promise to the darkness. I'll find a way. I swear I'll find a way to help you. The crying continued, a soundtrack to Emma's sleepless night. And in her locked bedroom down the hall, Lily lay awake too, staring at her ceiling and counting the days until the house claimed another victim. 3 babysitters in 3 months. How long would Emma last? And more importantly, what would she discover before her time ran out?